Well, hey there, you're on the internet. I've had a really weird week, and welcome to the Triple N Network, where all you newbie nerds can find all the news you'll need. Let's look at an ink today, shall we? Now, today's ink was requested, and I can't remember by whom. And believe it or not, the entire week's worth of everything, like all the prep to make these videos, has been laying in wait literally since the day I posted that last video. And then things got crazy for like a month, and I couldn't record until now. And so I have forgotten who requested this. But it was a request, so here we are. It's a Noodler's ink. It's one I have a sample of. It is Noodler's Berning Red. Now, yes, this is an ink that has to do with Bernie Sanders, the man who is running for the Democratic Party, wants to be president. However, the two rules of the internet are 1, never talk politics, and 2, never be a woman with an opinion, so I am totally not touching that. I am not going anywhere near that. But I will say, for those of you that don't know, although I feel like most people do, this is a fast-drying ink. It was designed to be with the other fast-drying inks in the Noodler series, which include Vernacchi Blue, Vernacchi Black, and Q-Ternity, which is a blue-black. So, now, although fast-drying inks, you know, you'd think that they would dry very fast, you know, like on the nib and in the feed and whatever, that's not true. Actually, most fast-drying inks are very wet and very aggressive, which is because they don't actually dry quickly, they sort of aggressively seep into the paper. So they can be troublesome. Be forewarned, because that is definitely what's about to follow. Yeah, so the 2 pens I used were these. Apparently I wanted to be thematic. This is a Parker Vector with a fine nib. Now, granted, this is a European fine, but as you can probably see, you can't see through those tines. So this is generally a fairly dry-writing nib, which I thought would be good for an aggressive ink. And this is a JinHao X450, and I love my X450s because they tend to be pretty broad and pretty wet, and this one definitely is. Alright, I wanted to find some comparables. Admittedly, I don't think I have any comparables that are the same in performance. I really don't think I have any. However, I do love a bright, you know, sort of true jolly red. So, let me check my notes. Yeah, I had 14, wait, no, there's another one. Oh, I had 19 red samples that were like vaguely similar, and I just picked the ones that were closest. So here's Berning Red. Here's Mont Blanc's Corn Poppy Red. Now, this is maybe a little more orange, maybe a little... this one is woolly, because even with this like 35-pound cotton paper, it really seeped in. Yeah, KWZ's Thief Red, which is maybe just a bit more like bright, but quite similar. Now, here's another Noodler's. This is in one of their Eternal series, this Fox. A little more orange. And then Diamine's Matador Red, which is kind of their sort of straight true red. Another one that could have been in here was actually Cardinal, which I reviewed earlier this week, and also Schaefer Script Red. But again, I had like 19 and I just picked the ones that were closest, so in that ballpark. So let's check out the chromatography. Now here's the chromatography as it's meant to be done, which is where you put the line of ink and then pretty much instantly drop it in water. You can definitely see where that initial line was put. You have this pink, and then some light pink going up, and then there really is this, like, I don't know, like Aurora Borealis type looking thing of just like red and oranges and pink. Now, here's where I let it dry, which is not how you're supposed to do it, but I feel like doing this over the years has sort of revealed certain things about ink characteristics to me. You can see the dot got a bit darker, and maybe this bit through here is a bit thinner, but yeah, everything else is pretty much the same. Now, I wanted to see what this ink could sort of stand up against. Camera, calm down. Good camera. However, the way I do this is when I'm filling the pens and I have the, the ink syringe like full of ink, after I fill the pens, I put a little bit on the paper and then I take a paint mixing knife and sort of smear it around. And putting that much of an aggressive ink on paper, even this Rhodia, was problematic. So I had to act quickly. Now, as you can see, the water did break up a lot of it. You can still see a bit of what's underneath, but very much broken up. 1/3 bleach solution turned it bright pink. Like the camera isn't able to grasp how it's almost like a highlighter pink that is. Ammonia pen flush really got it moving, but it also sort of reacted with the paper. Same with hydrogen peroxide. You can see the weird texture of the paper in there, which is strange for Rhodia, but yeah. Anyways, there you go. Brace yourselves, people. Starting from the top down in density, Clairefontaine 90 grams per square meter. 90 grams per square meter. Let's bring this in, folks, shall we? And you know what? Here. Sorry, I'm super caffeinated, so there's going to be some jiggling, but see that? Now, granted, this is a European fine, but there is feathering on 90-gram paper, and it's not instant drying. Fast dry really does mean fast, not instantaneous. So you can tell that that's wet. I mean, you saw how tight those tines were on that vector, and look at how much is coming out. I mean, this is way fast for a very wet ink with a bright color on 90-gram paper, but the vector took 4.5 seconds. The Broad and Wet JinHao took 8, but I mean, there's almost no shading, and I mean, you got all kinds of feathering in even this European fine. It's intense. Yeah, I said the flow is at least a 6.5, maybe a 7. Honestly, by the time I got to the end of the test, I was thinking it was more like a 7. Honestly, this is a very intense ink, and yeah, that is not just the light. Now, granted, this is the X450 right here, which is a wetter pen. That's X450 as well. So is that. But, I mean, this is 90-gram paper. It's intense. Now, I do like the color. It is a very bright color. Sometimes you want something that's fast drying. Honestly, I used to be ambidextrous, but then when I was learning how to write the year before kindergarten, I used to have fun switching the pen in between hands and being like la 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 la. And my teacher, all of them, physically took the pen out of my left hand and put it in my right hand and told me I would be much happier that they did that when I was older. Now I'm not so sure, but honestly, since I was 4, I haven't really written with my left hand, so I can't imagine what it must be like, especially if you love fountain pens. And I mean, it's raw ink. I mean, I'm impatient, so a lot of times I'll end up getting my fingers in ink and smudging it around. I don't know. I guess you gotta really, really extra fine pens, or have one of those really intense over grips. Or I guess under grips, because I feel like over you'd still... Anyways, now if you've seen it in my other tests, when I get to the later, pages, the more absorbent papers, I talk about how more absorbent papers tend to draw the ink in, make it harder to wash out. Fast dry inks, like I said, they're aggressive. They sort of fight their way into the paper, and that's kind of what happened here. Pretty much anywhere there would be shading, so this first downstroke, the downstroke of the T, the bottom of the R, that, there was more ink put down, and so there was more fighting its way into the paper. But the stuff where it was lighter, a lot of that washes away, and here you can see it just intensely feathers and gets woolly, and it went right through the paper. Oh dear. Now, next up is Fabriano. Echo Qua, 85 grams per square meter. This stuff has quickly become my favorite paper to write on, and I'll show you why. See any of that stuff we just saw in Clairefontaine? Not really. I mean, look at this right here, the edge of the M. Meh. And even that, it almost looks like it could just be the texture of the paper. Meh. You don't really get that feathering. And you don't get that like wooliness. You almost get a little bit of shading here in the scrubby. And actually, I know the camera won't pick it up, but like right here, along the very edge of this bit, there's a tiny bit of gold. But yeah, so that's interesting. Although here we do get a little bit of the woolliness, but not overall, not in the writing. I love how bright this color is. However, you do lose some of the fast dry in that fast dry. So that European Fine took 8 seconds, but that Broad and Wet JinHao, which has a 7 wetness ink coming out of it and an aggressive ink, I mean, 15 seconds to dry. Really not bad. And there is no bleed. I don't care if this paper is blessed by dark sorcery. This stuff is amazing. There's no echo, no bleed. Even the water test, the dots almost want to come through. That's it. That's nice. Yeah, really good. Bright color, very lovely. But again, it's sort of like what the areas that were wettest and sort of fought its way into the paper, those kind of remained, but it's not great. I wouldn't rely on it. That'd be my recommendation, I suppose. So yeah, something to be aware of. Now, next up is Rhodia, 80 grams per square meter. And sadly, we're back to having problems. Yeah, especially with that JinHao. And the thing is, we get it with the Fine as well. It's aggressive. Now, this is a ceramic coated paper. It's added in the pressing process, but even that's not saving it today. It's got a lot of woolliness, lots of feathers. We're back to slightly quicker dry times. At 5 seconds is for the VittaR. 9 seconds is for that Broad and Wet JinHao, but again, look at how wet that is. I mean, it's intense. Now, there are spots of full-on bleed. Now, the green circles are just like a few areas, because it did come out the other side. And then there's just lots and lots of these tiny dots. I mean, this is an aggressive ink. It's something you got to be aware of. That's what makes it fast dry. You know, it's not magic, it's physics and chemistry. You're gonna have some problems. Now, again, the stuff that sort of fought its way into the paper, some of it still remained, but a lot of it washed away and it feathered and exploded. It's not perfect. Now, next up is Tomoe River paper, which is known for drawing out dry times. And I'm sure there are some people who generally, they're like, you know what, I love this paper, I love the way it looks, it makes things look, but I write fast or something, you know, like I want to speed up the dry times. I got some bad news. For every fast dry ink I have yet tested, and I think at this point it's probably about 12 inks, Tomoe River cancels it out. Whatever makes that stuff fast dry, this stuff is just like, nope, not dealing with it. So you are not going to get fast dry on here. Now, that VittaR took 9 seconds to dry, that Broad and Wet JinHao took 25, which for these pens, any kind of ink, that's pretty standard for on here. Now here, you may see this. Please show up. Yep, there we go. See in the scrubby? See the little hints of gold? You get that in the writing as well, just like the tiniest little halos around the wettest parts of the words. Here, wait. Maybe we can see it in there we go. In sheen. And around. Get it there. Those are the X450. But, oh, the halo around no. Yeah, so you get this wonderful bright color. You're not going to get fast dry. If you're a left-handed person and you love Tomoe River, I'm very sorry. It's just not, it's not going to do it. So, yeah. The thing is, this is an aggressive ink. It is going to try and fight its way into the paper. But since it's Tomoe River and it just doesn't do that whole bleed, feather, spread thing, you're just kind of going to get an echo. But since this is a pretty intense color and this is very thin paper, you're probably going to have a little bit of an echo anyway, so just something to be aware of. Now, this paper does love to let ink slide away when you add more water, and it kind of did. Especially because, like I said, this paper is just like, nope, not dealing with it when it comes to ink that really wants to seep in. And so actually the camera's darkening this up a little bit. But yeah, it's pretty faint. And actually it's almost like a salmon color, which is interesting. But yeah, so not the easiest thing in the world to recover. Now, for the next 3 tests, these are the more absorbent papers. I only use the vector in fine, except to write the name. Here is the world's worst 20-pound copier paper. It's pretty bad. It does dry, or I should say absorbs, pretty much instantly. But we got an insane amount of spread. Look at the line width difference between here and here. It got huge. And we got like this woolly texture, we got feathering, no shading, but that's kind of been the way it is across the board so far. Now, here's what's interesting. Very little of this is full bleed, but since it's so aggressively seeped into the paper, it's like it's all the way in the paper, it just isn't coming out the other side. So if you're sensitive, this would drive you nuts. This would absolutely drive you nuts. I am sensitive, this would drive me nuts. I would not write on both sides. So yeah, you can definitely see that. Oh dear. But yeah, everything except like, I'd say the X450. The X450, that came through, as you can tell. But yeah, everything else, really not so bad. And some stuff came out the back in the water test. Now, this paper does tend to freak out when you add water. Could have been a lot worse. What I think is interesting, if we look at these letters, you can see the oranginess like we saw in the chromatography. I mean, it looks like it's on fire. That's kind of cool. But honestly, this could have been a lot worse. So we have an aggressive ink that forcibly seeps itself into the paper, and then we have an already absorbent paper, which, following logic, kind of means that it is not going to be the easiest thing in the world to wash out. Some of it did wash out, and just like the chromatography, it's sort of that orangey stuff, but the pink at the center, it's kind of going to stick around. So if you absolutely have to recover this, you could. Now, next up is Mead Notebook Paper, which is pretty common in the United States, especially for people in school. This is the kind of stuff you'd find in like a spiral notebook, you know, like a 5-star. Not so much the kind of thing you find in like a lab notebook. And lately this stuff has been feathering like crazy. So I just feel like I should say that. That's something this paper already kind of does. And adding an aggressive ink on top of it, a fast dry, we're going to have some problems. There is feathering, but honestly, I was expecting like big spiky feathers. I was expecting it to sort of just kind of go off the deep end feather-wise. But if we look here, see how broad the line width gets here? Here, not quite as much. It's not, you know, so it does spread a little, not quite as much. We don't really get any feathering. 1 second to dry, and even that, I mean, look, really not bad. Could have been a lot worse. There is one spot of bleed. It is there. And then that was me scratching through the paper because I am brilliant. But look, even that X450, it's got that dot. That's about it. Now, there is a ton of show through. That's what I call this. When you can see it, but it's not actually on the other side. It's this intense like echo. That, if you're sensitive like me, that would drive you crazy. This would drive me crazy. But honestly, I haven't written on both sides of cheap absorbent paper since ever. Yeah, pretty much ever. Now, this is what I mean by saying that sometimes paper can freak out when you add water. This counts as freaking out. But since this is absorbent paper and aggressive ink, again, you see that pink at the center? Very clear, very there, but that orange stuff is just freaking out. It's like it's on fire. Somebody absolutely set it on fire. But, yeah, so worst case scenario, you had to recover it. You definitely could. Lastly is Moleskine notebook paper, which I hate because it's terrible. Period. That's it. This is terrible, terrible paper. It's very, badly made, cheaply made, lazily made paper. That's it. So you then combine that with an aggressive ink, and you're going to get some really ugly results. I mean, look, you can definitely see the actual pulp that they used to mash into a paper. You can see it. Took half a second to dry, which is nice, but you get this really gross texture. Oh, it's not good. And then look at this. This is bleed, and in fact, this bled onto the paper below in so many spots that by about here, because as I was writing, I was like, geez, this has got to be really bad. I flip it over and I was like, already there's too many spots for me to go back and circle, you know, like I did with the Rhodia, where I had the little green circles. It would have taken me all day, because it is just everywhere. It made an absolute mess of the page below. Now, this is hard to read, this water test, because look, even this pink, the pink that was at the center before and very still and well behaved, that's starting to migrate too. That would not be fun to try and recover. Look, even this stuff at the center, you could recover it. Here, you could recover it. Here, you can recover. No. Moleskine, I am standing up to you. I will. Friends don't let friends drive drunk. Friends don't let friends pay that much for that paper. Hate Moleskine. Anyways, there you go. Noodler's Berning Red. I am not going to comment on Bernie Sanders. This ink, wonderful bright color. Did very well on Fabriano. Wasn't so quick dry on Tomoe River, but on those two papers it looked darn good. But it could even bring Rhodia and Tomoe and Clairefontaine to its knees. That's an aggressive ink. Yeah. If you need something fast dry, maybe try something like a dry writing Japanese fine. And if you're left-handed, man, more power to you. Honestly, if you need this ink, you know, like if you need a fast-drying ink, can you tell me what that's like? I'm not trying to be patronizing. Like, are you excited when a new fast-dry ink comes out? I'm trying to understand, because I do love fountain pens, but I kind of enjoy the break, like when I can't turn a page because the ink's still drying. I like it because it sort of makes me stop and think about what I'm going to continue to write. But if you need this stuff, what is that experience like for you? I really do want to know. But yeah, there you go. For your consideration from the Triple N Network. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more, please subscribe to the channel. And thanks for watching. Bye.